My name is Jim, and today the topic is soft skills. And before you click the close window, it might be worth taking a look at this, some important concepts that may help you in your employment and getting along with other people on the job. And there's three principal tenets to surviving well in an employment environment. One is to be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing. So by doing this here, and there's more to it, you end up building trust. You're investing in yourself. People see that you're on the job and you are earning your paycheck. Secondly, attendance and tardiness, and a very wise person told me this. This is a normal curve in statistics. If it, say, takes you on average 25 minutes to get to work and you leave 25 minutes early, that means half the time you're going to be a little bit early and half the time you're going to be a little bit late. Now, the problem with late is that there may be company policies to deal with that. And an example is that I used to work for a company that's now part of AT&T, and they permitted 3 absences or tardiness in one rolling year. And if you did that, you were on first alert for termination, first step as it's called, for termination. So it's a very serious thing. Aside from losing pay possibly, the other issue is that you're not producing product or producing a service that your company needs. And keep in mind, they need to make a profit on you to pay for the lights and for the building taxes and for all the administration and so forth that supports the company operations. So if you leave for work early and you get to work, you can always have coffee or drink the newspaper or whatever. And what you do is you kind of build trust. Your managers see this, and your peers see it too. So consistently being on time, so when something, and kind of have a blank there, happens, and it will, management knows that this is a typical behavior for you. If the freeway's closed, if a wheel falls off your car, or heaven forbid if you're in an accident, you know, it doesn't count as much towards somebody who's consistently on time as it would to somebody who's kind of hit and miss. So that's a very important thing for building your character. Never lie. Take a big risk when you do that. Own your mistakes. And again, this builds trust, and a very strange word in today's society, honor. Suppose that you drop a voltmeter and you break it, and there are 5 other techs that work with you. Nobody saw it. Well, putting it on the bench, somebody broke it. Who's accountable? And if you went up to your boss and say, look, I dropped and broke this, he might be upset because he has to get it repaired. But owning your mistake, again, builds trust and honor. The right thing to do. Never send an email when you are angry. It never goes away. You can't take it back. There's no undo button on emails. It's forever in the records. So if you want to respond while you're angry, you can type something back. Just don't send it. Come back the next day, read it. Read it carefully. Take the edges off it. You can say to a person what you want to say without offending them. The fact is, if 2 people are upset with each other, there's no dialogue. They're talking, but nobody's listening. Another good response that I use sometimes is no response. You know, okay, they think I'm a bad person and I did this wrong or that wrong. Just not answering them kind of tells them that they're not important and their opinion isn't appreciated. So there's a lot of different scenarios with this, but you have to be very careful with email. Never abuse a computer at work, permanent records, for example, by looking at porn. Those email sites never go away, and usually that's immediate termination if you do that. Visiting inappropriate websites, using company email for personal reasons, wait till you get home. Never lose your cool at work. Never become angry and it's easy to say this, of course, not so hard to do, especially if you're in a meeting. You know, you got to just take it. If you do get angry and respond in an angry way, what will happen is you'll be judged as, and this will be in private, as a hothead or a loose cannon and so forth. So keeping things inside and going home and running to get rid of the stress or working on a heavy bag or whatever is the best thing to do. I was in a meeting, I had trouble with an engineer in the previous company I worked at, and this was a politically extremely hot project. I was having trouble with him doing interface with a host of vendors whose equipment was supposed to work together. So I just figured it out myself, and my managers noticed that since they were CC'd on memorandums, that I wasn't getting any support. So because of the nature of this project, there was a meeting called of the engineering department versus plant operations. The engineer I was having trouble with was at first level. His supervisor was there along with the district manager. I was a first level manager, and my supervisor was there along with third level. And what had happened is that this engineer, who truly wasn't doing his job, used inappropriate language and things and got angry. And what he did is he called me a Rube Goldberg. Now, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I do now, and by the wording of it I knew it was an insult. And the reason he did that is I came up with some technique of doing video switching, which saved a boatload of overtime, and anytime I'd run into a problem I was in a position where I could use electronics, processors and so forth to design solutions to solve problems. So everybody was quite, I didn't say a word, I didn't say a word, because everybody knew who I was. I just let silence speak on my behalf, and then when they got around to the first level of right sizing, that's layoffs, this guy was the first out the door. So, you know, you just got to take in mind that if you get a label, they're very, very hard to go away. If you just be cool. An excuse is a justification, deserving or not, for doing or not doing something, and sometimes you need an excuse. I was in infantry training and I dropped out of a forced march. So me and several other guys, 10 other guys were lined up, and a lieutenant was walking down the line, and he started with the first guy and scream at him, and what's your problem, and this and that, and sir, I have a blister on my foot, and go to the next guy, and what's your issue? And he'd say something, and then the lieutenant would holler back at him, and I'm in line here, and I'm thinking about this. So he gets to me, and he says, and what's your issue? And I said to him, I don't have one. I don't have an excuse. So we held eye contact for a little bit, and then he said, none of you have excuses. Now get out of my sight. Actually, I did. Trouble with a muscle in front of my leg. I can actually run further than I can walk, but you know, not going to do any good to tell him because he did not care. So with excuses, you know, use them wisely. Use appropriate language always. Never say anything which somebody can take offense at, because they don't forget it. Most people do not engage in selective forgetting. So, you know, watch your language, be appropriate, and be sensitive to others around you so that you don't offend anybody, because it's, you know, it's just a negative thing. Prejudice, its definition is an unjustifiable disliking of somebody or something. And the key in here is the word unjustifiable. So, I suppose a lot of people have prejudices, and what you need to do is, you can't make them go away, they're a feeling, is that you can recognize when they're working. And once you know that that's involved, then you can deal with it properly. So be aware of prejudice. It's really not a good thing at all, and it's again, just leads to negativity. Do not say anything bad about anyone unless it's absolutely necessary. Again, saying somebody's a poor technician or didn't do this or that, it's just negative talk. It subtracts from basically the good of the environment. And sometimes you have to say things about somebody, for example, if they're stealing or doing some bad thing and needs to be brought out. Gossip, because it's true, does not justify it. Does not justify besmirching somebody's character because they did something perhaps many years ago. So stay away from gossip, and the only way to do that would be silence, or a statement like "I don't know him/her that well," or something else, so that you don't become part of the gossip network. It again is negative. If a project works well, acknowledge with the term "we." Like, we did good. We got we got the product up and running, and it meets all the requirements. And if a project does not work well, acknowledge with the word "I." Yeah, I maybe didn't see that aspect of the job. So we for good and I for bad, and what you're doing here is practicing humility. And again, this is sublime, but it's noticed by other people. Using the word "I" is, very boastful sometimes, so you have to be careful of it. It's not good to blow up your own balloon. Let other people blow it up for you. Diversity equals different. It means to be tolerant of those who are different, and they could be different by choice or by circumstances. And what I find is that if I'm in a meeting with other people trying to solve a problem, is somebody's different viewpoint based upon their lifestyle or their background in the country or wherever sometimes produces insights that solve good problems. And I don't have much of an ego. Keep it very, 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 very small. And if somebody's got a better idea, I want to do that. I don't suffer from the "not invented here" theorem, which you will definitely run into. It isn't my idea. It isn't any good. Always plan for the day you'll lose your job. This isn't like it was many years ago where you retired after 30 years with a gold watch. In today's environment, most likely you'll be laid off, or somebody will acquire the company and there'll be duplicate overlapping jobs and so forth. Somebody will be dismissed. So anytime you're offered company training on anything, accept it and write it down on the back of your resume. Important. Keep your resume as a desktop item. Just scribble something down about the type of training, the date, things like that. So if you need it in the future, you have it referenced. You're not going to forget about it. Use networks like LinkedIn or similar, and keep in touch with other people. And that'll serve as a networking process where you'll have kind of like little roots growing here and there. So if you need another job, you have a starting place. Instead of walking into a company cold, you have a link into them. Keep your education current. And this is, very important. And just kind of hold this guy up. This was built in the 50s. It's a monoblock high-fidelity amplifier, and the engineers that designed this, it was made by General Electric, and here's the bottom of it, were completely obsoleted by transistors. A lot of engineers never made the transition from voltage-controlled current devices, which is a vacuum tube, and current-controlled current devices, and basically they were out of a job. It was a very, very difficult transition. Today, technology changes so quickly that you got to keep your education current, or you're obsolete in 3 years or whatever. And you can take courses to do this, attend seminars, sometimes company-paid seminars, but that's a very key part of your life because this is going to happen. Resume up to date, mentioned that before. Plan for retirement. There's plans out there that are pre or post-tax that allow you to save money, and it's the last thing a young person wants to think about is, devoting some percentage of their pay to a retirement plan. But take it from me is that yesterday, I was a kid. Today, you're not so young. Time flies by quickly. You don't want to be in a position where you have to live in a difficult environment because you did not save. Anytime a company offers a matching plan, that's called, free money. Take advantage of it. Don't engage in stupidity. Boy, that's easy to say. Texting while driving. The other day, news clip, young girl was texting and ended up killing a couple people. Her life is forever changed and not for the better. Impaired driving. Okay, had too much to drink. Now the problem with this is you're trying to measure your skills, the way you feel, with a bent ruler. Your reference point is off because you're impaired and you don't know that. You think you're alright. Coming down here to do this, I had a beer one day, to do one of these, and I made all kind of mistakes with one drink. Yet when I was in school doing calculus problems, half a glass of wine, look in the back of the book, the odd problems. After I had that wine, not one of them was right. Oh, forgot a variable. Oh, forgot to square this. So it does affect you, and you can't measure how much. Drugs, what can I say? Stay clean. Assume that if you go to a job interview, they're going to do a drug test. And some companies do them periodically anyway. Everybody's doing drugs, it seems. All I hear about on the news is this stuff. Stay clean. If you don't, you'll pay the bill later. That's just about guaranteed. That also is very easy to say. Not so easy to do. Engage in activities that help other people. That doesn't necessarily mean donating money. It may mean working at a food pantry, or in some cases just listening to somebody. It's absolutely free. By you listening to what they're telling you about something that's really bothering them, gives them an outlet, and you actually make them feel better. You may be bored to death, but try to be attentive, and this is a very common way of helping people is by listening. And you can make the sun shine a little bit better in their day by doing simple things like that. All I hear is the things I do wrong. I never hear anybody say, hey, that worked out well. So people by nature pick on what's wrong and not what's right. So maybe it would be good to say to somebody at work hey, you fixed that piece of equipment in record time, and you really understand it. Something like that. It adds to the positive environment of the working place. Felony. Bad. Disclose it on an application because they're going to find out anyway, and it's best they hear it from you first. Try to have it expunged if possible. I have very, very strong feelings about felonies. It's the red F on a person's forehead. Make a mistake when they're in their teen years, and here they are 25, 26 trying to get it together, and it's just bad. So try to avoid felonies, obviously, and if you have one, just be sure that you're up front with somebody on an application, because if you don't disclose it, what they're thinking right off the bat is you're trying to hide something. Not a good thing. Be ready for an interview question. What is your greatest weakness? Now, this is kind of typical. And what they're looking for here is your response, and what my son is give them a false positive. An example would be well, I tend to get involved in too many projects at the same time and I have difficulty finishing them. Things like that. Be ready for the question. Another interview question is, in the comment, the interviewer will say, hey, I see you got some mud on your shoes. Well, okay, what's your response to that? I says, oh, how'd that happen? I shined them yesterday before I came to the interview, and guess I stepped in some dirt. Whatever. So these are surprise questions to check your reaction. So be ready for those. And it's always good to get a good night's sleep before you go in and interview. Be at your very best. When it comes to resumes, seek help in writing one, because there are techniques and styles that are important that you're not aware of. Just on the right sheet here. In my example, since I've been reading technical literature my whole life, is I'll just bullet point everything, and that's not necessarily the best way to do it. So people that help you write resumes know the different themes depending upon the position you're applying for, and can help you with the wording to come across with who you are and what you've done and why this person wants to hire you. So there's nothing wrong in asking help to write a resume. The college has the department to do that, and there are other, if you're graduated, there are other places where you can go for resume help. So that will conclude, I guess, soft skills, and thank you for watching.